Hello and welcome back to Dormroom Diplomacy, episode number 8. Today, here I am joined, as usual, by Mr. Jack Arnold, our so amazing co-host. How have you been?
Hello. I've been pretty good. How about you?
I've been all right.
Yeah, hanging in there.
School's been a bit difficult this week, but, it's you get used to it, right? You get used to it.
Yep. Just roll with the punches.
Just roll with the punches. Has anything changed since your last speaking? Has school got any harder for you, or are you just kind of doing nothing still?
I'm cruising now. All my midterms were at the end of last week and the beginning of this week. The last thing I have left to do is a philosophy paper. Is my last midterm examination, if you will. And, I love writing about that stuff, so that won't even be an assignment for me.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was difficult there for, a couple weeks. Yeah. But now, back to cruising.
Hey, man, it's the best way to be, right? Just getting through it.
Exactly.
What sucked for me, though, is I'm having to kind of prep all my homework in advance and stuff and get it all done.
Yeah, I would imagine. It's
No
fun.
It's no fun, but it leads us to a little bit of an announcement for the future.
This is true.
It's now time to announce that there will be some episodes releasing with both of us in person.
Both in the same location. Think about that. Yeah,
that.
Mr. Matthew is going to be coming up to Chi-Town, and we're gonna chop it up together in person. Hopefully find a cool spot to record. And yeah, see how things go. Those should be some cool episodes.
So look forward to that.
To mostly the trip, but obviously the episodes as well.
To our audience who doesn't get to come to Chicago, look forward to the episodes that you'll be seeing.
Of course.
We'll try and make them the best we can.
Yeah, we'll give some of our accounts can live vicariously through the episodes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking about midterms, there's a little something that I wanted to talk about briefly. Have you had any group projects yet?
No, not group
really?
projects. I have one class where all our quizzes are groups, and we do all of our assignments as groups.
That sounds very nice.
No, it's not. It's been nice and it's been terrible because
quizzes seem like it would be nice to do as groups. Projects, not so much.
Well, yes and no. It's not projects. It's a math course. But so there's no projects. But what it is all the quizzes are group based, and all of your in-class assignments are group based. So essentially, there's a lecture, and then you complete an assignment based on the lecture, which is not graded, but you do it as a quiz. So there's no consequence to that. But then you take quizzes every week based on the material with your group. And I've had 2 groups so far. And one of them, we didn't miss a single point. Every quiz we did, we got 100%. It was pretty straightforward stuff. The quizzes aren't insane. Like they're not, crazy tests or anything. And everyone, like most of the people in the group knew pretty much what they were doing. But I got a new group after the midterm. And both of them scored one of them scored a 30% on their midterm. The other one scored a 50% on their midterm. And it's only a group of the 3 of us.
That's really confidence inspiring, ain't it?
We haven't done a quiz yet. I just know because we haven't done anything after the midterm. It was last week.
Right.
But we were talking about what everyone scored on their quiz. And, it was like, oh, I got like a 30. Man, it wasn't great. And the other one was like, oh, I got like a 56 or something. Like, not too bad. And I'm sitting here. I'm like, are you kidding me? This is my grade is based off of these people for the, but I don't want to, talk too much trash because it's just, what can you do? Not everyone takes it seriously.
And college is hard too.
It's going to be curved anyways. Like they're going to probably pass the class regardless.
Yeah. But it doesn't mean you should suffer because of it.
Yeah. So essentially what it is going to equate to is, if I want to do well. I'm just going to have to provide answers for the quizzes. And
right.
Worst case scenario, I mean, I can always talk to the professor if it goes that poorly. But in all fairness, they're both really cool people.
And that's the problem that sucks about group projects. Is
they're
a lot
really
of time
nice.
They're good people. It's just
yeah.
I
don't know. If they were assholes, it'd be different. But they're both really cool. And like I've been talking to them, and the guy is actually, he's an international business major as well. We've been talking a bunch, and he's a really cool guy. It's unfortunate when your like grade in the class gets tied to other people, because then it's like, I have to weigh the motivations of being a friendly person and doing well in the class. It's like, why can't it just be individual based, so I can just be friends with these people and not have to worry about my grade based off of it?
It's the dilemma of like, the people that dislike group projects are generally the people that work the hardest on group projects, versus the people that love group projects are generally the people that don't work hard. It's like, the reason I brought it up is because I had a discussion post I had to write today in a sociology class about like, group-based social interactions, and group projects is just one of those things that's always brought up in education. But like, I had a group project for a midterm, and it worked great. Like, it worked amazing. Like, we basically just said, hey, I don't want to do the math. You go do the physics. I'll program the framework for it. Took me like an hour, and I sat there watching YouTube while they solved the physics equation for like 3 hours. Yeah. It was amazing.
I mean, if everyone's motivated, it works in theory.
Yeah,
you just
exactly.
need all of the pieces
to fall together. And I feel that the people in this group were motivated. It was a lot easier because these people were. But
right. So it varies case to case. And I don't know. I think we're also moving away from it in that class. He submitted a survey to everyone in there and got some feedback, and he was just kind of going over it and talking about it. So I think we might be moving away from the groups.
Yeah,
because I don't want it like
statistics class, or it's what was it again?
It's like a business calculus in a way.
Oh, okay. That'd be hard to do in groups.
It's it's weird, So, but we'll see. I don't know, because I don't want to. It's just frustrating when I have to be focused, on getting a good grade, because I want to pass the class, and I'm concerned with my GPA and stuff like that. And I know like a lot of people in college, just want to, C's get degrees, baby.
D's
as long as you're passing classes, and then it's fine. Then there's no concern. But I just if I want to end up going to graduate school, that's something to be concerned with. I also just don't like failing at anything, which can be a toxic trait, honestly.
We'll
but
talk about that later. That's a characteristic of our inner psyches, but we'll get into it later.
However, it's good and bad, but so it obviously
very
everyone looks at it differently.
To deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
of course. But I think we have quite the interesting topic.
Yeah, it's quite a special topic for sure.
It's a little bit of a departure from our topics of late. I feel like the last 2 episodes got pretty preachy.
They did.
Pretty, I don't know. I enjoyed them.
I did too.
I still stand by pretty much everything I said in all of them. But I can only, talk about stuff like that for so long, because who am I to tell people how they should or shouldn't live. I can only provide my interpretation of my own anecdotal evidence. But today, we'll obviously have plenty of opinions, but hopefully a good amount of substantiated evidence as well.
And I feel like, this is a topic that a lot of people find very interesting, but I think some people haven't even been acquainted with whatsoever. And there is so much more that goes into it than what is just like surface level, and I think that's kind of what we want to get into a little bit.
Yeah, so with enough beating around the bush, some people may be very familiar, may have no idea, like you were saying, but there's been a recent controversy in the ancient game of chess. surrounding a couple pretty big names. And there's been some alleged cheating going on. And we're going to kind of tackle this from, two directions. I've enjoyed playing chess my whole life. I have not been playing as much as I wanted to in the last couple years. Played a lot more before then, and I'm just kind of getting back into it.
Man's just renewed his chess.com premium account, so.
Oh, I sure did.
We'll drop that in the description if you want to challenge him.
We're getting back. Hey, I will. Oh, I'm open to challenges. I will say, I'll take challenges. But it's something I've been interested in for a while, just chess in general. But there's been a great deal of controversy. And so, like I said, I'm going to kind of try and approach this from, its effect on the game, my, opinions, interpretations of what it means for chess going forward, the competitive integrity, all of that, being a player. And then Matthew, I know, kind of got really interested in a lot of the stuff surrounding the chess engines and the computations that are done. Yeah, the ways that people can use, the software to cheat and such. And so I also hope that we can provide enough information here to help both educate people who have no idea what's going on. Because, if you're listening and, you've never played chess in your life, or you've played, a couple times with your grandpa and don't really know what's going on, hopefully we can provide enough to kind of get you acquainted with the idea. And for people who are, well aware that this has been a controversy, hopefully we can provide some opinions. Because a lot of people, for anyone who is following this issue, is probably frustrated with the fact that a lot of people involved and a lot of people giving interpretations aren't giving opinions one way or the other. Right. So since my opinion means nothing on this matter, I'm willing to go out and say what I actually think.
I've noticed it's a lot of just like trying to not offend anyone and trying to keep, because ultimately there's no way to prove one way or another, which
it makes sense.
Long story short, that's the answer, but
it makes sense. There is not an answer yet. And I understand why people don't want to come out and claim one thing or another, because there's a lot of ambiguity surrounding the entire situation. But I just think it's fascinating. And so hopefully we can, provide enough for whatever your level of knowledge is on the subject. And so I do want to begin with just kind of a timeline of what's been going on, just to serve to introduce the topic to people who aren't as familiar. And so kind of what it all started with, and for those who aren't familiar, the two main players here are Magnus Carlsen, who, is touted as, the greatest chess player of all time. The guy's a phenom. He's an absolute freak. Watching him play is beautiful. If you appreciate good chess and you just watch this man play, or you listen to him talk through his thought process, it's just something else. The guy's incredible. And it's him and a newly risen talent in the world of chess, Hans Neimann. And what kind of has ended up happening is Magnus Carlsen has accused Neimann of cheating. They were playing in a game in the Singfield Cup, I believe it was. And it was a championship game, and it ended up being that Neimann won the game. For context,
were huge for this game.
Yeah. Stakes were huge. I don't know what the prize pool is. I want to say it was like 100,000.
It was a lot of money.
It's a big deal. That might not be entirely accurate. I'll have to double check it, but I think it was around there. And Neimann ended up taking the game.
It's a name thing, though, too.
Absolutely. I mean, Carlsen has been dominant in the last couple years of chess. Just extraordinary in just how he has controlled just the upper level of, like FIDE regulated chess. And so shortly after losing to Neimann, Magnus Carlsen came out and said he was resigning from the tournament. He didn't say why. He then, shortly after, they were playing another match, an online match. This first match was an over the table match, an in-person tournament match that he ended up losing. And then shortly after, they played an online match where I believe it was the third move. Carlsen resigned the game and disconnected. And shortly after, released a statement saying that he was not allowed to allege or go into detail or anything. But essentially, he insinuated that he thought that Neimann was cheating.
I believe this was on Twitter, yes.
Yes. Oh,
so I'll put the tweet up on screen.
Yeah.
But
should for sure. But yeah, and so it's kind of been a whirlwind of events since then, because this is pretty unprecedented in the world of chess. It's it's a pretty quiet scene, if you will. Not a whole lot of controversy.
You don't often accuse people of cheating, and
right, yeah, and
also it's like it's become such an event that even people outside the sphere of chess know of this. Like, at some point, if you have been on Twitter, it's probably made it into your feed and you've seen it, which is kind of a testament in itself.
Yeah, it's kind of exploded, which, is great for chess. Like, I love to see that, but it's very, very strange to see something like this happen for a few reasons. Obviously, Magnus Carlsen in the world of chess is, a super celebrity when it comes to that. And for him to, his words have ultimate power when it comes to chess. Like, this guy, he's practically the face of chess at a highly competitive level. And so when he comes out and he did not directly allege anything. Eventually he would, but even just the insinuations that he made indirectly through his tweet, that can destroy a career. And totally. So this was serious stuff that was going on. And for Hans Neimann, he's the same age we are. He's 19 right now. He's been on kind of a meteoric rise through the chess rankings, and we'll get into that and its implications within his alleged cheating a little bit later on. But suffice it to say, the guy is incredible. He's a prodigy. And the fact that he is even able to play up to this level is remarkable to begin with. But to kind of get into a lot of the controversy, essentially, later, after Magnus actually alleged what it was that he, believed, essentially just thought that Neimann had cheated in their game together and that he had cheated much more throughout online games, on chess.com, kind of throughout his entire career. And directly following what I believe was their over-the-board match, or over-the-table match, Neimann had an interview, and he basically admitted to cheating on 2 occasions. He said he admitted to cheating when he was 12 and when he was 16. And so the community was like, basically just took it as okay, he's trying to come clean that he cheated. A lot of people cheat online. It's pretty easy. The incentive is obviously there. Like, probably won't get caught, stuff like that.
Right.
But that his over the table play, was completely legitimate. That's what some people were claiming was the case due to his, admitting to those 2 occasions of cheating.
Right.
Was not the case. Pretty soon after, let's see I'm not sure what the exact date is. But quite recently, within the last week, chess.com, who like for some people, they're just like chess.com. Isn't that just like a, an online chess site where you can play chess?
Right.
Yes.
I mean, it's become the pseudo standard for
but
chess
exactly
games.
It is, it's the say in chess when
Right.
it comes to online chess.
It's the premier authority for sure.
They conduct, vast majority of online games. A lot of instructional material. They host tournaments, cash tournaments as well. A lot of people make their livelihood streaming chess on chess.com and winning tournaments on chess.com.
For sure.
So it is not just, a website that people play on sometimes.
I'm sure you might have seen your favorite streamers playing chess on chess.com.
Right.
So, it's a thing that's gripped, a lot of that area.
Yeah. So aside from FIDE, which is the International Chess Federation, it's actually funny. I've always hated the acronym, but FIDE is the French acronym because you're saying International Chess Federation. Yeah, it doesn't add up.
It's backwards, doesn't it? It's like the.
Well, no, it's the French acronym is what FIDE is. Whatever the French words are. Not gonna even look up what they are because I'll butcher it.
Because I know that for just complete aside, but I know for like SI units, the reason it's SI is because it's backwards, the way it is in French, and that's the way that it was created. So, but go on.
Yeah. But anyways, aside from FIDE, chess.com is the authority when it comes to chess. Obviously, in-person tournaments, FIDE takes jurisdiction, if you will. They're, have the supreme say in the regulations in how they choose to conduct matches. But the reason that chess.com is so important in all of this is because COVID, ladies and gentlemen. There was a long period of time where in-person events were not a thing, and these people's careers had to go on. They continued to play, and all of these tournaments, cash prize tournaments, remember, were conducted online, and it is much easier to cheat online, but it is not as easy as people think. And essentially what ended up happening is chess.com released a report of all of Neimann's history where they believed he had cheated in the past through various games, tournaments against other notable players. And initially they released this to journalists to create reports on. And then just today or yesterday, they released their own report. And I was reading through it today. It's a long report. I didn't read through the entire thing, but it is pretty fascinating. If you are into chess at all, I would highly recommend reading it because it basically just shows that everyone has cheated. That's not true. Not everyone has cheated, but so many of the top players have cheated online in the past because it's very easy to do. That doesn't mean it's easy to get away with. It's not. This report shows that. It shows that they have caught all of these people cheating, and we'll get into their anti-cheat later. It's pretty robust. They do a extraordinary job of catching cheating on their site, which is pretty impressive what they've managed to do. Because you think, don't you just use a chess engine that gives you optimal moves to plug into your game? What if you use that on a different computer? You're not even tabbing in and out. No, they can detect, and just because of how chess works, and you kind of have to apply chess theory to really get behind it all, but we'll get into all of that. What I want to address first is just obviously I mentioned that Neimann had admitted to cheating on 2 occasions. The report that chess.com put out says with substantial amounts of evidence. We'll link the report in the show notes if you want to take a look at it. All of the graphs, the data points will be in there that I'm referencing. But there's over 100 accounts of him cheating in matches against grandmaster players, other notable players in prize tournaments with cash prizes, in just ranked, matches in order to gain elo, to move up the ranks.
Right.
Yeah, all many cases of him cheating in the past, which obviously calls his character into question. Can he be trusted to not cheat in in-person matches if he has such a long history of cheating? That's a lot of where the controversy is coming from. So.
And for those who don't know, the whole concept of elo and stuff, it's kind of like it's of sorts a number that represents your win-loss ratio and other statistics that's thrown into an algorithm that match makes you with other players at a similar level. It's a lot more complicated. That's just a summed up version of how that kind of technology works.
Right. Yeah. It's actually kind of funny. One of the things I had in here is that during 25 of his cheating occasions, he was streaming the games that he was cheating in, which I just think
rough.
is funny.
That's rough.
I know.
That's a bit rough.
Yeah. The direct quote here is from their report that they gave is that we have found Hans has likely cheated in more than 100 online chess games, including several prize money events. He was already 17 when he likely cheated in some of these matches and games. He was also streaming in 25 of these games. Which is just like, yep. I mean, he got away with it at the time. And the thing is, the big thing in chess is the fact that a lot of this has gone unpunished for so long. Cheating has always just been such a weird thing because it's so hard to know for sure if someone's cheating. People can have, these games that are complete statistical anomalies where they play, close to perfection. But it's when someone does it at such a consistent rate.
Right.
Or, and that's, obviously when stuff gets flagged. And so it is really interesting to kind of look into chess.com's anti-cheat because you have to, when I was taking a look at it, at least I was wondering, how do you catch someone cheating in chess?
And what gets crazy even more is that these chess engines, they're not entirely analytical. They have elements of human tuning in them that forces them to make decisions logically in a human sense rather than just directly making analytical moves. And we'll get into that more, but that plays an important part in how the anti-cheat works.
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially, the controversy stems from the fact that obviously Magnus Carlsen, large celebrity when it comes to chess, accusing this guy of cheating is a serious allegation, could destroy this guy's career regardless of the outcome.
Could destroy either of their careers if it was pushed either way.
No, it really could. If it turns out that he's being completely legitimate and just beat him fair and square, then, Carlsen looks like kind of an idiot who's just a sore loser. And so we're going to have to see how it pans out. I will say, just obviously, it's difficult to form an opinion, like I said, but it is very interesting that actually starting tomorrow is a tournament that Neimann will be playing in. Hans Neimann, the alleged cheater, will be playing in a tournament beginning tomorrow. Now, Magnus Carlsen has on Twitter said that he will not play against Neimann under any circumstances. I would imagine that will hold. But it will be interesting because he's in a tournament with other, top 100 players.
People are going to be analyzing his moves like
he will be able.
Else.
This is an opportunity for him to be able to prove himself and show that he is really this good. Mm-hmm. And so basically, just to preface before we get into the anti-cheat and the chess engine and all of that, essentially the sides of the controversy come down to whether Neimann should be excused for his cheating in the past, because he was a dumb kid, didn't know what he was doing. And, he is this good, like he should be forgiven and just make sure he's not cheating, like put him through like, metal detectors and like pat him down at these in-person events, like ensure that he's not cheating, but excuse him for his mistakes in the past because it's, largely inconsequential. Now, the other camp of thought is, no, once a cheater, always a cheater.
Right.
He should be, severely punished. I will say he's already been banned from chess.com. One of his accounts got banned from chess.com. He was also uninvited to the chess.com Global Championship, which Magnus Carlsen will be competing in. And so that a lot of people thought was done because of pressure from Carlsen. Obviously, he has a lot of say in the world of chess. And so when Hans Neimann was uninvited to this tournament, a lot of people thought that there was malicious intent.
Right.
And Carlsen just didn't want to play him. And so he, said or asked them to remove him from the tournament.
But obviously, via that report, chess.com has their own, reasonings for their decisions.
Yes, yeah. They say explicitly that Carlsen was not involved in the decision at all.
Yeah.
I will say, I'm not sure who all knows this, but chess.com and Play Magnus. Play Magnus is a software owned by Magnus Carlsen that is a teaching software. It's a paid subscription for chess lessons.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually merging. Corporate merger. So yes, there could obviously be a conflict of interest here. So
yeah, there
who knows?
Could be.
Who knows? But chess.com has gone on the record and explicitly said that Magnus was not involved in the decision at all.
Right.
You can agree with that. You cannot. You would think that they would view it as in their best interest to tell the truth, because if not, it gets really ugly. But I just wanted to put it out there because that's honestly, I just think it's hilarious. But also, like, you kind of have to look into that and be suspicious to a degree.
But yeah, pretty much a lot of history there. A lot of foray into the whole world of chess and currently what's going on.
Of course. So yeah, I mean, in the end, you kind of just have to decide for yourself whether you think that Neimann should be held fully accountable for everything he did in the past, whether he can be trusted to not cheat in the future. That's kind of where a lot of this comes from. It's difficult to say, whether he cheated in his in-person matches or not.
Yeah.
And I say difficult, it's impossible. There's no evidence to show that he cheated in any of his in-person matches. And so whether or not you want to detach the in-person from the online, is up to the individual.
Right.
Personally, I think that there should be punishment for cheating to any degree, even if it's online, especially because there was, cash prizes involved.
Yeah.
But I do believe that he can be given an opportunity to play in in-person tournaments. The fact that these tournaments aren't more regulated than they are is already a problem. And obviously you can say now...
And they will probably be from now on.
And they should be, and they should have been. And so, like, yes, you can be frustrated with it, but, it does no good in being frustrated with it because...
I think there was kind of a morological stigma around the sport that perhaps lost its depth as modern, chess players became part of the scene.
Yeah.
You could argue.
People don't care as much.
Exactly.
And people are motivated by different things.
But
so it's, there's been plenty of controversies of cheating in the past, but I mean, literally putting these guys through some metal scanners,
could solve this problem.
Just, like RFID blockers and patting them down a little bit can literally solve this problem. Or just make them play naked, whatever you want to do, right?
Right. Well, I don't think that's a great idea considering the prestige of the sport itself, perhaps. But
yes. I only joke.
But to kind of understand a little bit about the anti-cheat and how I haven't done too much research on the anti-cheat, so you'll have to take up that end of this. But the parts of the chess engine we got to understand is that it's at this point in computing history, it's physically impossible to compute every possible game, and essentially it's impossible to compute a perfect game every time. So just like, humans do, chess engines look X amount of essentially turns out, and they just have the ability to check every single position out to checkmate in every single possible outcome. They on average do about 40 different turns is what they look out to. But just to put it into perspective of how many, no one's actually calculated the number of possible legal games that there could be, because it's a number that is unfathomably large and no one wants to put the time into calculating that. It's anywhere between 10 to the 57th power and 10 to the 123rd power. And
just a small margin of error.
That's
there.
a small number, and it's just a small margin of error. But to put this into a little bit of perspective, I crunched some numbers, and there have been approximately 4.35 times 10 to the 17th seconds since the start of the known universe, or about 13 billion years. And another metric is the universe being 90 billion light years wide. This equates to roughly 5.29 times 10 to the 23rd miles wide. So for there to be 10 to the 57 to 10 to the 123 possible games in existence is ridiculous. And it would be impossible for any modern computer to compute stuff like that. So that and just as I'll put this up on screen as well, but this is kind of a statistic as well, just based off of the first couple of moves, and I'll go over just a couple. So in White's first move, there's 30 possible positions. Black's first move, 900. White again, 27,000. Black again, 810,000. White again, 24,300,000. Black again, 729 million, and then it gets into the billions and trillions after like 10 moves.
Right.
So it gets ridiculous very quickly.
And
so that's why the computers have to adopt a human-like way of, assessing moves and assessing, possibilities and making probabilities. So it's very similar to the way a human would go about doing things. It just has the capacity to do it in so much farther, so much wider ability to do it in so many more calculations.
Right. Yeah. It's essentially like the human aspect of a best case scenario, like a best case move, and creating moves with certain levels of risk aversion that a human would calculate. The only difference is it's looking much, much further ahead because it's able, just to compute much more than the human mind can.
Right. Like there's like, just like if you learn chess, I'm sure you've thought of this, but there's ways to value certain pieces, right? Pawns being one, knights and bishops being like, what is it, like 3 to 5, and there's ways to logically do this.
Right.
The programs do this too, and they take a lot of these ideas, like castling early is important in a lot of games, and there's other ideas, and they turn them into heuristics that the program can use to essentially eliminate hundreds of thousands of possible bad ideas.
Yeah. The big thing that sets the engines apart is the ability to come to the conclusion that the best case move is a move that has no consequential effect on the outcome of a game until, 20, 40 turns down, down the game, which a human, the top, level chess players, it's been calculated that they can compute 15 to at best 20 moves ahead. And even still, that's with the assumptions they make on how the game will progress. it's a completely a different story when the computer can, you know, make the computations for all of the scenarios that could stem from a certain move, and they're able to make these moves based on evidence they see coming forth in the game 40 moves down the line.
Exactly. They literally do hundreds of thousands of position calculations per second. And what I kind of wrote up about this is, I said the program uses assumptions about average game statistics of games based on an extensive list of common games. There's about 10,250 common games is what I've found in my research. And that's not nearly anywhere near that other number, but it's games that commonly, you know, just appear because of the way chess works. And, you know, you ask, what the hell does that mean? Like, it kind of means that the engines essentially assume that typical games are around 40 moves long, and there are about 30 possible considerable choices per move. And thus the program doesn't have to look at every single one. It just thinks of about 40 possible combinations, calculates those moves out to when it sees a checkmate, and then it uses heuristics that I was talking about before to essentially make a table of best possibilities, and it overvalues or devalues certain, you know, moves. And it also uses statistics like, at what stage in the game are we? You know, are we in the early game? Are we in the mid game? Are we in the end game? And there's a lot of logic behind it, but it really doesn't work in any way different than a human would think about it.
Yeah, and the robust nature of these chess engines is what makes it so easy to find out when someone's cheating. The human brain is only so complex, and it is very complex, and it's capable of much more than people imagine. But you know, it's not capable of everything, and it's pretty easy to distinguish when games are impossibly, you know, played impossibly perfectly, if that makes sense. It's just there are instances, there are times when people have played perfect games of chess, where they have made moves so similar to the chess engine. It's the consistency is what it comes down to.
Can you do it 50 times in a row?
Right, yeah. I mean, someone could play a near perfect game of chess on a mere fluke. Is it likely? No.
Is it possible? Yes.
Think about the numbers we were just discussing. You know, it's obviously not likely. And so it is the consistency that raises a lot of concerns.
And the problem with, you know, checking anti-cheat and stuff like that is the nature of the way these engines work is in a similar way to the nature that humans go about thinking of it. And that's why it makes it so difficult.
Yeah. So one thing that I think is really cool to look at is kind of the statistics that at least chess.com's anti-cheat uses, which in terms of anti-cheat, it's certainly the best anti-cheat, and it's also, most people aren't playing chess anywhere else, let's be honest. But you know, so they kind of have you know, the final say when it comes to it.
And they've also got probably hundreds of millions of data points to make these statistics.
Oh yeah, which is why it's important to look at their statistics, because they're concerned with the long-term growth of chess. You know, it ties in directly with just the growth of their business. So obviously, they want to maintain competitive integrity. Now, sure, could there be other things going on? Absolutely. But I don't think it's necessarily important to get into that now, just because in the grand scheme of things, that's just an entirely separate problem. But what I think is really cool is to look at what chess.com calls their strength score. And essentially what the strength score is it compares your moves with a chess engine's moves. It compares the player with how similar their moves are to the same moves that would be suggested if you plugged the game into a chess engine. And
one thing I just looked it up. They claim over 1 billion games of chess have been played on chess.com. So
okay, yeah, I mean,
that's a ridiculous amount of data.
Premier, you know, yeah, I mean they're.
And that just better backs up the statements you're about to say, because all that data has been used to create what you're about to talk about.
Yeah, and I do genuinely recommend going, if you are at all interested in chess. Maybe you're just here for our, opinions on the controversy. But if you're interested in the game itself, and the chess scene at all, I recommend going and taking a look at this article, because the graphs that they use, and the data points they put together, are fascinating and rather disheartening. But because it just shows this has been a problem for a while. But essentially, like I was saying with the strength score, it scores you against the chess engine. And this is something that's recorded for all players, but it's watched especially closely when it comes to top players and tournaments and such, as it should be.
As it should be.
Right, yeah. And so essentially how it works is there's a strength score, 0 to 150. And 150 is a perfectly played game of chess. And so the highest level that it's perceived, or the highest human level of chess that can be played is estimated to be at about the 100 range. That is in optimal.
I was wondering why they added 50 on top. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That logically makes sense.
In optimal conditions, and this does not happen. I'll get into it in a second. But a score of 100 is approximately the highest ever measured for human players. That being said, over a several game span, 90 is the highest score. And I'm referencing their article here because they go pretty in depth on how they calculate the strength score, because it's a pretty important metric when it comes to comparing different players and such.
Right.
And so that kind of goes back to the consistency thing I was saying. Yes, that 100 score, while it is the highest, people are not hitting that with any consistency. It is impossible. Like I said, 90 is the highest score that's been seen sustained over a several game span. And so what's important to look at here is within the context of these tournaments with top players, grandmaster players, extraordinarily distinguished, very competent players, they only need assistance in anywhere from 1 to 3 moves within the entirety of a game to switch it into their favor. And with how chess works, just being prompted, by a tap on the leg, or, if you have a chess engine on another device, being able to make the optimal play at the optimal time. And, you think about it and you're like, oh, well, these are the best of the best. Shouldn't they just know what the optimal play is? Like I said,
heard those numbers I just gave you, right?
Yeah. These people, and another thing I want to bring up, if you play chess and you know chess well, then you're not asking that question because you know how extraordinarily difficult it is. But these guys, this is a tangential point, but the calories burned during a match of chess, I don't know if you have looked at this. At a
professional level.
But these guys are burning thousands of calories a day. I've seen that during the course of a tournament, it's on average, chess players lose 2 pounds a day over the course of a tournament. It's like they are literally burning thousands of calories because obviously it's, very cognitively demanding. But what it is it's an elevated blood pressure that leads to the burning of so many calories. They're just in such an extreme state of stress and mental strain that it elevates your blood pressure and just, rails your metabolism. And so it's obviously something that is extraordinarily demanding. And so, yes, when you are that strained, it is extraordinarily difficult to, parse out what exactly is the optimal move at the optimal time.
If it's 2,000 pounds a day, that'd be 7,000 calories.
2 pounds?
2 pounds is 7,000 calories.
Okay, yeah, you said 2,000 pounds.
Oh, sorry. If it was 2 pounds a day, that would be 7,000 calories.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that's accurate. You fact check that if you'd like, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhere around there. And obviously it varies person to person, but suffice it to say, it's extraordinarily demanding. And so they only need assistance in, a few moves to cheat and to win a game. And when it's in as high as the stakes of game, if there's, $100,000 on the line, then yeah, like it's serious stuff.
It's $100,000.
So yeah, I mean, it's while I say it and it's like, oh, well, how could you catch someone if they're just cheating on a single move? It's pretty clear when you look at all of the data points. Chess is not a game where, these players who are in these tournaments get there by accident. And it's not it's not a game where you can just completely come out of nowhere. Like we talk about, this, Hans Neimann guy and like, oh, he came out of nowhere, prodigy and all that. But I mean, he has been playing chess at a high level for years and years. It's just with how the game has developed, over, I mean, this game's been around for forever. Yeah. With how the game has developed, especially in the modern age, with just the abundance of information available on the game theory and resources to learn, it's boosted the entire, player population of chess. Like everyone's gotten better with more information available.
For sure.
But it's become extraordinarily formulaic, and it's very templated. And anyone who has played chess for a while knows, you have your openings, you have your mid-game developments, you have your principles of chess and your theories, and it can become very flowcharty.
Right.
And it's based on a lot of players will make their moves as conditionals, and kind of have these templates in their minds of how they want to develop based off of certain things. And so what that means essentially is it's very hard to just play like a free flowy form of chess that's actually competitive. That just simply does not work against very good players, which makes it so hard to get to one of these tournaments or to become an extraordinarily high level player as a fluke. Like it really just doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I don't know. It's important to look at that when it comes to the controversy. Because whether, like I said previously, whether or not you think he should be punished for his cheating in the past, what I think is honestly more important is looking at, the play now of Hans Neimann, but even of other people who are quote unquote anomalies statistically, and what that means, in the broader scheme of the game and like competitive integrity, I guess. Because cheating should not be acceptable in any case, especially in in-person tournaments. Like this is something that needs to be dealt with. So I just don't know how it's become such a problem.
It's a combination of an extremely difficult game and an extremely intelligent chess engines causing issues, and then chess.com essentially reverse engineering an anti-cheat based off of the chess engine. And now we have controversies because we can't necessarily hold people to the same level in over the board type play.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's obvious that Neimann has cheated online on chess.com.
These are the infallibles.
Many a time. That is true. It is like you can dispute it, but there's not a whole lot of validity to that. So that's something that I kind of just want to detach that from it. I'm not saying it's okay. I just want to detach it. And so there is an opinion to be formed on whether you think he should be punished for that or not. Personally, I think he should. I think it's not acceptable at any time. I think that a standard needs to be set with no exception. I'm not the authority on chess here. don't have too much to say on it, but like, whether it's something like, you have 2 strikes. If you're caught, with substantiated evidence of cheating twice, you're done, banned from chess.com or something like that. Where I think it's more important to kind of divert, let's say, the efforts of the community, is in over-the-board games, in these in-person tournaments, in FIDE-regulated events. Come on, guys. This should have been done a long time ago. This should have been more heavily regulated. There should have been procedures in place to make it so there could not have been something like this that could have ever arisen. But here we are. So the best case scenario at this point is just to learn from the mistakes and actually try and fix it. And so,
welcome, guys. People cheat. Woo.
Yeah. I guess you all just thought that chess players had too high of morals to ever want to cheat for their own monetary gain. Yes.
Yeah, and fame and
right.
So
yes. Since human nature is, so purely motivated.
Absolutely.
And so I just think it's important that we regulate this more heavily moving forward and ensure that if someone is to cheat, obviously if someone is to cheat, they should be punished, but it shouldn't even be possible that someone can cheat in an over-the-board match. Like, come on.
Yeah, in an over-the-board match, agreed.
Yeah, so
cheating's going to happen. Cheating happens and is going to continue to happen, and it's going to continue to even get better.
Yes, online it can
games.
be detected, but it cannot be prevented.
Because unfortunately, the research on chess engines is it's been in the works for a long time, but it's still going very strong. And as computers get more and more complicated, these limitations of computation will start to go by the wayside and allow us to actually calculate perfect games eventually.
Right. And I mean, there's monetary motivation for these people to develop the technology behind this. So it's going to continue to be innovated on. And so, like we're saying, it's going to continue to happen. So in the online sphere of things, yes, it will continue to happen. It should be caught and it should be dealt with. But when it comes to the in-person events, there just should be no room for there to even be a possibility.
And a lot of this could be solved with the metal detector.
Yeah, metal detector, ensure that, competitors are stripped of the
radio silence.
I mean, there's been instances of competitors going to the bathroom and checking their phone and cheating because of that. Like, are you kidding me? Like, come on. This is just ridiculous. It's an international organization who's supposed to be, a regulatory sports entity. And, prize pools are being given out, $100,000s of dollars. Like, this is serious
don't
stuff.
Cheat, and you shouldn't be cheating, and figure out how to make these people not cheat is the story.
So I do just want to say that as of right now, sorry to all of the people out there who think that Hans Neimann should, be thrown to the fires. There's no evidence to prove that he's cheated in over-the-board play. I personally think that Magnus Carlsen's kind of an asshole, and that's pretty general sentiment held by the community. He's very arrogant. Is he the greatest player to ever play chess? Yes, he's incredible. I have watched many of his game theory courses and some of his lessons and stuff, and he's very smart. And that in itself is commendable. But I want Neimann to be right here. I want Neimann to really be that good. I hope that he is this talented, and that he just cheated to, like he said, what he claimed is he cheated so he could play against better people to get better.
Gotta up your elo.
Now, he certainly lied about his cheating. I don't think that is commendable at all. I think he should be punished for that. I think that he should be certainly punished if he won any prize money from games that he cheated on. That's not okay. Hello? I don't think that's a very controversial opinion.
I I mean, how do you take up legal action against that, though, internationally?
Right, I know. There's obviously, a bit of a gray area surrounding all of this, but I do hope that Hans Neimann is indeed this chess prodigy and is very talented, and just made some dumb mistakes, as we all do.
Absolutely.
And hopefully, now the only way that this can be solved is if Magnus, takes the stick out of his ass and agrees to play this kid again. I say kid, we're the same age, but if he agrees to play him again, which who knows, only time will tell. But I do, and so that's the only way we can see for sure. But as of right now, there is no reason to, there's not enough evidence to suggest that he has cheated in his over-the-board matches.
And we will probably bring a little bit of a follow-up to all this stuff if anything ever develops.
Yeah, we will have to address it, because I am personally very interested in seeing how it develops.
Sure.
And I mean, frankly, I understand where Carlson's coming from in his accusations. There's obviously a lot of suspicion surrounding Neimann and his history, and it's believed that Magnus knew about his further accounts of cheating, which is why he alleged but said he couldn't go into detail. So I get why there was suspicion. I certainly think it could have been handled a lot better, but I'm interested to see.
Things could have.
Right. Always, hindsight is 20/20, as they say. So I am interested to see how it develops, but I do think that Neimann should have the opportunity to prove himself in over-the-board play, because I sure hope that he is really that good. I mean, if it turns out that he has been cheating this whole time in all of his matches, I'll be very disappointed. Because honestly, I mean, the world of chess needs a little bit of a shakeup.
Yeah,
the hierarchy needs to be dismantled a little bit.
Yep. But with that, I think that's a great wrapping up point.
Yeah, I think it is.
I think it is. Thank you all for listening to this special episode of Dormroom Diplomacy, the chess arc. We are now truly having all of our episodes uploaded to YouTube in video format, so go check those out.
See the beautiful faces.
See our beautiful faces, face reveal time.
Yes.
As well as make sure to follow us on the socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and yeah, look forward to the special Chicago arc coming soon on Dormroom Diplomacy.
Of course. Looking forward to that.
Without any other comments or anything to say, I guess we'll wrap it out here.
Sounds good. Peace.
Peace.